Hey y'all, and welcome to Politabrawl. My name is Brian, and Brandon Gill takes no prisoners after Ilhan Omar says these ridiculous statements in front of all of Congress. Let's dive in.
We hear the Republicans talk about big, beautiful bill. I think this is a big, ugly bill. Let's call it what it is. It is the largest transfer of wealth from the poor to the rich in U.S. history. This reconciliation package proposes devastating cuts to Medicaid and SNAP. My Republican colleagues will tell you that they are just going after waste, fraud, and abuse, but let's be clear. The only way to slash this much safety net spending is by making it harder for people to survive. Their changes will kick millions of Americans off their health care and nutrition assistance. That means more untreated illnesses, more hungry children, more preventable deaths. This isn't just line items in the budget. There are people's lives, the sacrifice of human dignity and of life itself. And for what? So that your billionaire friends can get nearly $300,000 in tax cuts? This is not a serious budget. This is a green light for authoritarianism, for inequality to run rampant. It is a police state budget wrapped in billionaire tax cuts.
Mr. Gill from Texas is recognized for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And first of all, thank you for all of your hard work. I'm thrilled about this piece of legislation as it's getting started. This reconciliation bill, I believe, will balance. It will extend the Trump tax cuts for the working class so that they don't experience the biggest tax increase in American history, and it'll grow the economy. But of course, it will also help us to implement the Trump agenda, which is to clean up the chaos and destruction that Joe Biden unleashed on our country over the past 4 years. It will help us fund the mass deportation of illegal aliens who have been murdering and raping and pillaging American citizens. It will help us unleash our fossil fuel energy sector, and it will allow us to rebuild our military. And of course, it will help us implement DOGE, which this amendment targets, among other things. As DOGE has been rolled out, I think it's been a bit curious because I found that so many of our colleagues on the other side of the aisle have not been upset about the waste, fraud, and abuse that this process has uncovered. Rather, they've been angry that the fraud has been exposed at all. We found that for decades, the administrative state has been weaponized against the American people. We can give example after example of flagrant abuses of American taxpayer dollars. We've heard of some of them earlier, but I'll name a few more. $1 million spent to boost French-speaking LGBTQ groups in West and Central Africa through the State Department, almost $50,000 on a transgender opera in Colombia, also through the State Department, over $7,000 for a BIPOC speaker series in Canada through the State Department. I think it's worth noting that normal, sane Americans don't know what BIPOC means, and neither do I. $80,000 for an LGBTQ community center in Slovakia, and over $16,000 for a united and equal queer feminist discourse in Albanian society, whatever that is. And of course, we also know that our taxpayer dollars have been going to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars every year to fund left-wing media outlets like NPR and PBS, paying for welfare for illegal aliens, and paying for giving out payments to international organizations that are censoring and pushing for the censorship of American citizens. Our own federal government is using taxpayer dollars to promote ideologies that tens of millions of Americans find utterly repulsive. I think if the other side of the aisle has such a deep ideological opposition to this DOGE process, I challenge them to be straightforward with the American people and explain why taxpayer dollars should be funding queer feminist discourse in Albanian society or drag shows in Ecuador. I don't think that they will, but I would love to see it if they did. Elon Musk acting as an employee and an agent of the president, I think, has certainly more democratic legitimacy than Anthony Fauci did, and he certainly has more democratic legitimacy than the nameless, faceless bureaucrats who have been running our lives for several years, the waste of which he is rooting out currently. President Trump here with Doge is doing exactly what he was elected to do. Doge is a part of the Trump mandate. It's extremely popular. In fact, Elon Musk and the Doge movement right now are polling at a higher approval rating than Joe Biden had on his way out of the White House. President Trump, of course, is polling at record numbers.
Let's go, Brandon. No longer do we have to say that ironically in order to mock the mainstream media and, of course, the terrible job of Joe Biden, but now we can say it because Brandon Gill brings the receipts. Seriously, we have to have this fight over and over and over again and remind people that USAID was the CIA arm that projects something called soft power. What that really is an extra way for elected officials to have their children or their family members sit on these weird advisory boards with these non-governmental organizations that dot Northern Virginia and parts of DC and, of course, in Maryland, and receive easy money from the federal government to do, essentially, jack squat. It's quite literally a money transferring scheme, which is the very thing Ilhan Omar claims that she's against. So Brandon Gill is, of course, making the Democrats defend the indefensible. And this is a great political tactic, and this boy knows how to use it. I can't believe I'm saying the word boy because I think I'm actually older than he is. But I told y'all, this dude was a rising star, and he might become an A-lister very quickly, particularly with videos like this. Hey, y'all, here's the deal. Gold loves President Trump. Under Trump's first term, the price of gold soared 53%, and the price of silver jumped 51%. Since the start of the second term, gold has skyrocketed even higher, breaking records and even outperforming stocks. Here's what I like about precious metals like gold and silver. They have been used as a store of value for centuries. Governments can't easily manipulate it. They are used as hedges against market risk and, of course, against inflation. That's why I partnered with the amazing people over at Goldco. Goldco is an award-winning precious metals company. They are fans of this show, and they have helped millions of Americans just like y'all to purchase over $3 billion in gold and silver. Right now, you can get a free copy of their 2025 gold and silver kit. On top of that, you might also qualify for their amazing unlimited silver bonus offer. So don't wait on this. Go to politabrawlgold.com to learn more. That's politabrawlgold.com or call 855-644-GOLD. And roasting Ilhan Omar isn't exactly too hard. She's such an easy target. Anyone who is a part of the Socialist Squad and meant those words, well, it hasn't ended well for a lot of them. As a matter of fact, there's only one successful member right now. The rest are either pariahs or have kind of been kicked out. And so, the Socialist Squad doesn't really exist like it used to, thank the Lord. But AOC is still a major popular candidate on the left, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens if she does decide to run in 2028. But please, don't throw me into that there briar patch. And if you get that reference, you're awesome. Save Splash Mountain. But ultimately, there is a problem with waste, fraud, and abuse in our federal government. It's a huge problem, and I'm going to give you an example of actual Medicare fraud that was found recently. I just typed it into Google. This was the first story that popped up once you hit the news feature. Over the 2-year period, Zayas, whose home was searched by federal agents last week, is accused of billing the federal government millions of dollars in hospice services never delivered, according to the criminal complaint. Over 2 years, millions of dollars went directly into this woman's pocket. Now, this is allegedly, but I'm just using that as an example, and it took them 2 years to figure out that there's something wrong here. At that time, you might be able to recover some of that money, but that ends up being a small drop in the bucket. But there are so many small drops that you've got an entire bucket full of quite literal government waste. We have found billions of dollars just through USAID alone. We have barely been able to scratch the surface on Medicare. And when it comes to Medicaid, the Democrats are clutching their pearls, screaming about, oh, you're taking away health care. No, that's not the Republican plan. The plan is to enact work requirements. The plan is to have a greater ability to look into certain problems and go, we need to investigate this a little bit more thoroughly. And the Democrats are out here screaming about it. Meanwhile, the American people still have these sorts of polls, and they're still in good standing. The Doge cuts are still in good standing. I knew I had to start that sentence a little bit differently. But the American people are still behind these sorts of cuts. And furthermore, here's something interesting that I've noticed about the Democrat Party. They don't really believe in human beings. They don't. And it all stems from this singular part, one of the great meta-narratives of American politics. Ever since Woodrow Wilson, the Democrat Party switched from being the party of the common man to the party that despises the common man. Because Woodrow Wilson's entire mantra is that an unelected bureaucracy filled with highly educated people will know better than, say, Congress. That ultimately has led to a constitutional crisis that we have been battling out back and forth. Again, meta-narratives in politics. The Republican Party has been trying to unwork this problem. And there's some great Hillsdale courses on this. And that whole idea that unelected bureaucrats have all this power over the average American is a certain sort of tyranny. This is something that they have over in Europe. Now, granted, Europe is a completely different beast than the United States, with way more countries bordering each other, way more languages. There isn't that cohesive order. They've been pining for the Roman Empire for so long, but they've forgotten how it actually works. And so, the Democrat Party has been wanting to have these bureaucrats basically run your life for you, all because they think they're helping you. And just like the social programs, which have been proven time and time again that it doesn't work here in the States compared to Europe. And one of the main reasons is the fact that we're so car dependent, but that's another topic for another day. But we've seen time and time again that these programs don't really work, or at least they don't work anymore. And so constantly funding them and throwing money at the problem doesn't really work either. It's going to take a different kind of ingenuity. It's going to take the American people having the ingenuity and even human capital to start solving these problems. Because we can't keep throwing money at an issue when we are $37 trillion in debt. That is the reason for Doge. That's the reason that people are talking about Social Security and Medicare. Again, we tried talking about reform 20 years ago, and the American public just refused. They refused, and they voted Democrat like they've never voted before. Now those chickens are coming home to roost, and the American people are starting to realize, maybe, just maybe, we need to take another look at these issues. And the Democrats, well, bless their hearts, they're between a rock and a hard place. Because if they admit that our debt is not a problem, that means that they're not admitting there's an elephant in the room. But if they say that there is a problem, well, that means that they've been culpable and compliant in creating the issue to begin with. So yeah, that's the kind of stuff that they're having to deal with, and oh boy, does Brandon Gill remind them of that. Folks, my name is Brian. Hope you enjoyed that segment here on Politibrawl. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one. Until then, y'all have a good one.